Hello guys, how are you doing? Welcome back to Rule of Two Review, and today I want to talk yet a little bit more about Bethesda and the third parties showing up on the Switch. So this has been a big topic this week, of course, since the Nintendo Direct and some of the cool announcements we saw coming to the Switch. I've made plenty of videos myself discussing the third party situation on the Switch, as we've seen the ebbs and flows and the goods and bads and the ups and downs of that since the Switch has launched. And even last night, for example, I was featured on a podcast over with OJ at Player Essence and Sean Long of RGT85, where we spent a lot of that podcast discussing the third-party situation in Bethesda and 2K with NBA and all of these different things happening. It's a pretty big deal. It's a big conversation, and for the most part, it's really exciting. So to be fair, I want to give fair warning to you guys. I am going to further elaborate in this video on an idea that I've talked about a few times, both on my video after the Nintendo Direct and even a little bit last night on that podcast. I elaborated on it as well, but I haven't really given a full amount of time to discuss it, and so that's kind of what I wanted to do. So you might have heard me touch on this before. If so, maybe the video on the topic is less interesting, but I'm still very interested in the topic. I think it's important to discuss a little bit further, and maybe some people have missed it or not even heard it or thought about it in this way, and I think that it's important to discuss further. So the big crux of the whole conversation is the fact that now, just past 6 months after the launch of the Nintendo Switch, we are really starting to see some amazing promises from some pretty big companies that third-party support and quality titles might actually finally be coming to the Switch. And I mean, I shouldn't even say might be coming. We now are officially seeing some huge titles. Obviously, we know about what 2K is doing with NBA and WWE, which is really, really huge. Of course, EA is bringing FIFA, and they've also announced that their indie game Faye, which looks really fantastic, is coming as well. And then, of course, the big news and the big kind of thing that I'm focusing on right now, all of the Bethesda support with Skyrim and now Doom and Wolfenstein 2: The New Colossus coming soon. So again, I know that I've touched on this a couple of times, so just bear with me, guys. I really just want to dive deeper into this topic and why I think it's important. To me, coming off of that Nintendo Direct and the fact that we saw a company like Bethesda, who has been so nervous and hands-off when it comes to Nintendo pretty much forever, is finally giving this support to the Switch with some of these games, it is a big deal. And starting with Skyrim alone, Skyrim is a unique game in an interesting case. We've all discussed it ever since the Switch was first revealed back in October last year, almost a year ago, by the way. And we saw Skyrim running on the machine at that time, and it was like, oh my gosh, Skyrim of all things? Like, that's really cool, that's really exciting, Skyrim's a great game. It's also Bethesda, and that's something we never thought we would see on a Nintendo console. What does this really mean? But then, of course, there were the other sides of the conversation, which absolutely had merit. Oh, okay, well, that game is 5 years old, 6 years old at this point. It's not pushing technology that makes us feel like the Switch might be that powerful. It's not a game that's exciting because we've all played it 100 times. It's not brand new. And so there's been sort of this back and forth on really what that game represents. And it's a fair point and a fair conversation. I've obviously been excited about the idea since day one because, A, I love Skyrim. I don't care what anyone says, that game is an absolute masterpiece. I haven't played it since probably 2012, so there's that aspect. But in general, that game is really amazing, so I'm excited for that. And I'm excited for Bethesda, and I was at that time excited for Bethesda to be releasing something on a Nintendo console, on a brand new Nintendo console at the time. That was a huge deal, and something that I always very much believed in. But there is that negative aspect of it being an older game. For a long time, we didn't quite know if that meant there was more Bethesda support coming. We didn't know if that was the 2016 remaster of the game that showed up on the PS4 and Xbox One with updated textures and visuals and all these great things and DLC, or if it was just, you know, basically the same thing as like the Xbox 360 version from 2011, which is like not even comparable of the PC version of the time. And so, you know, we really just didn't know. We had all these questions, and, you know, we kind of viewed it as, well, Bethesda is obviously just going to be testing the waters and testing the market with the Switch and the Nintendo audience with this game, which is pretty much their biggest and most successful game I think they might have ever released. I don't even know if Fallout 4 performed as well as Skyrim did. I'm not 100% sure, but I feel like Skyrim is probably like their biggest tentpole release out of many tentpole releases. And so, okay, they're going to test the waters with this very safe game, but also a game that's old, and maybe not even on par with the remaster of the game that just came out. So, is that going to be a fair way to judge the Nintendo audience? Bethesda and companies like Bethesda, we want more of your games. But again, that Nintendo Direct happened, and we had the announcement of last year's Doom, which is an absolute freaking incredible game, and then of course the upcoming Wolfenstein 2: The New Colossus, like I said. And so these become really huge deals to me. Again, stuff that I've talked about on the last video or two. This becomes a big deal to me because we've all been very excited, more and more excited for Skyrim as we've gotten closer to it. And I've seen a lot of the Nintendo community, people who I even know have never really played the game or had interest in the game in the past, starting to get excited for Skyrim, seeing that Bethesda put really good time into the game, excited for a brand new huge open world experience on the Switch. There's Nintendo and Zelda specific content thrown into the game, Joy-Con motion support, all these different things. And it's made the Nintendo and the Switch audience and gamer excited for this game. And so we started to kind of really see the writing on the wall that, hey, I think Skyrim is actually going to do pretty darned well for itself. We know that Bethesda is gauging the success of Skyrim on the Switch, and so hopefully we can start to feel good about it. But then we get these new games, Doom and Wolfenstein, and what's important, and again, the point that I've driven home a couple of times and I want to further drive home with this conversation today, is the fact that Bethesda is taking this huge gamble and throwing us Doom and Wolfenstein before Skyrim has come out. And that really is something that needs to be taken note of, I think, guys. I mean, they obviously, yes, wanted to test the market with Skyrim, but they're willing to give us these other huge games that obviously required a massive amount of work to get to run on the Switch and to port these engines and these visuals over to the Switch hardware before even seeing if their first game on the Switch performs well. So something has happened. Something very positive has happened behind the scenes to convince a company, an American company that is very huge and relevant today, like Bethesda, to take this gamble on the Nintendo Switch, on Nintendo's hardware and their console, on the Nintendo audience. And it's a really, really great thing to see. Whatever it is that happened behind the scenes, obviously, Nintendo probably doing a lot to court Bethesda. We talked about this a lot last night on that podcast even. Obviously doing a lot to convince Bethesda, we care about your content, we know our gamer will care about your content, we think you can see success on our new hardware, the Nintendo Switch, this is why it's great for all these different reasons. I would assume, I don't really know the details of this, you guys, and I don't think many of you guys out there really would either. I would assume some money has something to do with this. Obviously, somebody pays somebody to get something to happen in a way that they feel is mutually beneficial so that there's less risk for Company A if Company B is willing to front some of the funds to make it happen. Whatever the whole exchanging of money, you know, sort of scenario is back there, I'm sure that that's also a huge part of it as well. But I really think that a lot of care and energy went into making a relationship like this work. And it's really exciting to see because, again, I would never have thought that we would see something to the scale of Wolfenstein 2, a game that isn't even out on the PS4 and Xbox One. That's such a huge thing, you guys. I mean, yes, the Switch version is coming out many months later, which is unfortunate to a degree, but the fact that it was announced before any version of that game has ever released makes it a new, quantifiable multi-platform release relevant to its time, and that really is huge. And they didn't even need to see the sales of Skyrim. They already believe, whether it's Nintendo doing this, whether it's just the sales of the Switch doing this, whether it's just Bethesda and folks like Todd Howard really, really enjoying the system and the hardware of the Switch, all of these things are making really good things happen, specifically from that company. You know, and like I said, it really is important to point out the fact that there are other companies that are also sharing the similar level of support. Like I said, EA is maybe not to the level a lot of us want, obviously, and they're still kind of in the gray area of, are they doing the right things that make us happy, or are they doing it in a way that maybe isn't ideal and right for the gamer and still shows too much trepidation? I want to believe it's going to work out with EA because I want their better games on the Switch. Obviously, 2K, again, is huge because of games like NBA and WWE. And then Rockstar with LA Noire throwing into the mix. Wow, that is huge. And if we can see a company like Bethesda take games and game engines like Dooms and Wolfensteins and make that run comparably on the Switch, you better believe that Rockstar is going to see and be able to do the same thing, because both of those companies are extremely talented. They're the same level of talent. So you have to think that whatever magic Bethesda and Nintendo did to make Doom and Wolfenstein work, the same kind of magic can happen with Rockstar's games, with a Red Dead Redemption, with a Grand Theft Auto 5, with a Red Dead 2, or whatever else those guys might do next. Another LA Noire game. I mean, no one's even really been talking about this. Maybe part of the reason Rockstar is even remastering LA Noire for the current gen consoles is because they're planning on doing a sequel to that or another game that's very similar, and so they're trying to get that sort of game and that technology into the consciousness of the gamer again. And maybe that means, if that was true, that they really would like to make a version of the new game also on the Switch. So let's see if our remaster of the old game can also sell on the Switch, and I firmly believe that it will. I believe that right now, all of these games from all of these companies are going to continue to perform very well. And I think that what's interesting about the Bethesda thing, which I know I'm focusing very heavily on the Bethesda thing, but I think it is the biggest, most important thing happening right now. What I think might be another of many positive byproducts to the Bethesda game showing up on the Switch is that I think it's also showing other developers what's possible, and especially when those games end up performing really well on the Switch, which I believe they will, that will further show other developers, hey, wow, I guess we really can make some of these really graphically intensive games work on the Switch, and oh wow, those gamers are buying the heck out of those games, so there's a lot of money to make, so it's worth us to put the money and effort into our versions of the games so that we can, again, continue to see, and this, you know, this applies to a company like Activision, which we know has been very hands-off, or EA with their other games, like Star Wars games, for example, that we haven't seen proof of on the Switch yet. Maybe it shows those companies, man, if Bethesda can do it, I mean, we should be able to do it. Otherwise, we're just getting shown up. We're getting exposed. Bethesda is showing why they're more talented, why they know how to make their games work on this hardware. Why can't we do the same? Are we chumps? Well, let's not be chumps. Let's show the rest of the world, the rest of the industry, the Nintendo audience, that we can do it too. And hopefully that will be one of so many very good things coming out of this situation. Beyond just having great games to play on our Nintendo Switch, portable, by the way, we might also get other companies realizing, yep, time to pull our heads out of our asses. We need to start doing this too. So that's pretty much it. You know, I think I'm going to put this, for now, you guys are going to laugh, I'm going to put this third-party conversation, at least the Bethesda third-party conversation, to bed for now until there's another major development. I mean, when there's maybe more news or footage or an official trailer from Doom or Wolfenstein or even yet another game announced from Bethesda or one of these third-party companies, obviously, I'm going to talk about it at that time. But as far as just kind of, you know, further regurgitating my thoughts on this topic and all the good stuff happening here, I think I'm good for now. So I'll just wait for news so you guys don't have to worry about more bombardment. I really enjoy talking. If you know Rule of Two Review, you know this. I really enjoy talking about third-party situation on the Switch, the good and the bad. Even when bad things are happening, I think it's important to address it because I very much care about this whole concept. So having good stuff to talk about feels awesome. We haven't been able to do this in a very long time, you guys, so I think we should all just be really happy and enjoy what's going on and look forward to games like Skyrim and the 2K games and LA Noire and Doom and Wolfenstein over the course of the next few months, and even Ubisoft's games. We know they're doing some great things as well, so, you know, way to go Ubisoft. There's some cool stuff happening. So what do you think about this whole idea? What do you think about the Bethesda stuff? The fact that they're taking a gamble on the Switch before Skyrim launches. They obviously have crazy good faith in the console and in the hardware and in the Nintendo gamer and all these other companies in the third-party stuff. You know, it's a pretty big topic right now. So what do you guys think about this? Thanks, of course, as always, for tuning in. This is Rob of Rule of Two Review, and I will catch you next time on another video.